So let's go through some examples of solving by completing the square. So my first step here is I want to move c to the other side. However, I see this one, c is already over there. It's just my number. And so my next step that I see is I want to take half of b, square it, and add it to both sides. And so how I'm going to do this is I'm going to have b here, and you can write on the side or you can just do it in your head, but you want to take half of that. So 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. And so now I'm going to add the square of that to both sides. So now we'll have x squared plus 6x plus 3 squared is equal to 7 plus 3 squared. So I added the same thing to both sides. That makes this equation still true. And the reason why I left it as just a square, because now we can go ahead and factor this left-hand side. And how this will work every single time is that it's just going to be x plus whatever is inside this parentheses. So here that's 3. And that's because if I factor this out, it'll end up being this. And so now on the left-hand side, I have 7 plus 3 squared. Well, 3 squared, that's really 9. So 7 plus 9, I get 16. And now we can go ahead and solve this just like we did before. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And I get x plus 3 is equal to, the square root of 16 is 4. And so I get plus or minus 4. And then subtract 3 from both sides. X is equal to negative 3 plus or minus 4. And then now I'll go ahead and separate that into two different equations. So that's really going to be negative 3 plus 4 and negative 3 minus 4. Well, negative 3 plus 4, I get 1. Negative 3 minus 4, I get negative 7. So that means that my two answers are x equals negative 7 and 1. Let's try this next one. So here, my first step again is to move c. This time c is on the left-hand side, so I need to move my 18 to the other side. So I'll add 18 to both sides. And I get x squared minus 4x. I'm going to go ahead and leave a space here because I know I'm going to be adding in my half of b squared. So now I need to figure out what my b is. So my b is my number in front of x, that's negative 4. So I'm going to take half of negative 4. Well, negative 4 divided by 2, I get negative 2. So that means that I'm adding negative 2 squared to both sides. So that means on the right, or the left-hand side, I can go ahead and factor this. So I can know that's just going to be x minus 2 squared. So again, I just take my x, my negative 2, and that's how it's going to be factored. It's equal to 18 plus, well, negative 2 squared, negative 2 times negative 2, I get a positive 4. So I get 18 plus 4, which is 22. And I'll take the square root on both sides. And so I get x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus 4.7. And so you can just find that using Desmos. So you can just take the square root of 22, and then I just rounded it to the nearest tenth. And add 2 to both sides. So I get 2 plus or minus 4.7. And then now I can separate that into two different equations. So I have 2 plus 4.7 and 2 minus 4.7. So when I do 2 plus 4.7, I get 6.7. And then when I do 2 minus 4.7, I get negative 2.7. And so those are going to be my two answers. Okay, let's look at two more. So looking at number 3, my first step is to move c to the other side. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So I have x squared minus 2x plus, and I'm going to leave a space because I know I'm going to be putting my square term there, equals 8. Locate my b, so my b here is -2, so I want to take half of that. So I have -2 divided by 2, and I get -1. So that means I'm adding -1 squared to both sides. So that means I now have a perfect square trinomial on the left-hand side, so I can factor this, and when I do, I get x minus 1 squared is equal to 8 plus -1 squared. Well, -1 squared, that's just 1. So 8 plus 1, I get 9. And now I have a square root problem, so I can go ahead and take the square root from both sides, and I get x minus 1 is equal to, the square root of 9 is 3, so I get plus or minus 3. Then I can add 1 to both sides, and I get x is equal to 1 plus or minus 3. And now I can go ahead and separate that into two different equations. That means I'm going to have that x equals 1 plus 3 and x equals 1 minus 3. 1 plus 3, I get 4, and 1 minus 3, I get -2. So that means that my answers for this problem are x equals -2 or 4. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to try this last problem on your own. When you think you have it, go ahead and press play. So the answers you should have gotten here were that x equals 1 or 11.